Today we've got a special guest, and it's Carmelle Riley. And Carmelle is an indigenous entrepreneur turned author and spirituality teacher from New Zealand. She's passionate about teaching people how easy it is to overcome childhood, family and ancestral trauma, harness their slow brainwaves, especially delta, and expand their 90% imaginative subconscious mind. Because when you shift out of everyday stuckness and a fear-based mindset, you can manifest your goals more easily and tap into unlimited universal energy. Carmelle is a mum to 3 young adults and lives in the forest close to Auckland with Captain Sam, her husband, their Labrador, 2 Burmese cats and many native birds. So welcome, Carmelle, to 100 Breaths.
Kia ora, tēnā te mihi ki koutou. So that is hi and to life to you, Gavin. Thanks for having me. And a mihi, a big shout out to your audience. I'm so joyous to be with you here today. Thank you.
And we are as well. I'm really looking forward to this conversation because over the last couple of days, I've learnt so much about you through my research that I do on my guests, and I like to research my guests so that they can feel comfortable that I've made an effort to understand about themselves, their life and what they do, and how they can bring joy, peace and happiness to all of us. And I have to say that with the research that I've done on you and a couple of things that you've shared with me about my star chart, etc., and we'll get a little bit more into that later, that I feel in the last couple of days like I've been to the moon and back about 10 times.
Actually, it's your moon ancestry that has just flowed in like a beautiful, delightful download that was you were just waiting for.
I've just been blown away, actually. I just felt like, wow, this is just insane. And then Carmelle's an author as well and recently released her book called Super Manifester. Manifest the secret in you, and that's the cover page of it there. You had a beautiful little statement at the top of that was by a little endorsement there by Ken Honda, which and Ken said, Carmelle has captured everything about the most essential elements of spirituality and combined them into one book that will truly help you change your life. This book is about so much more than just manifestation. It's about how to take back your entire life through your beliefs, thoughts, emotions, and spirituality. And she actually teaches the tools you need to do it yourself. An amazing resource. And that was an endorsement by Ken Honda, who is also an author and a mentor. So very powerful words there, and congratulations on your book.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I just have to add that I don't usually do as much research on my podcast host because I can generally just feel into the energy. But we have a lot of hills and forest around us, and I literally walked out your book in one session because it's a great size of 2 hours to listen to on Audible. And I just felt like I was zoned into your, not all of the saucy, juicy details, which I'm hoping I'm going to get a few more out of, but I really felt into the soul of Gavin McGay. It was quite it was a joyful exchange.
Yeah, thank you. And I was really chuffed to hear some of your feedback and that you'd been listening to me from the Audible perspective. And I've had a couple of people that have given me some great feedback from the Audible, and I really enjoyed narrating it myself because it just came through me, so just flowed through me. I got that from a universal download when I was recovering in hospital, as I expressed in the book. And that's how did your book come through you?
Well, it first came in a weekend, which I did through in a workshop on the Eastern time zone. So I wrote it, the structure or the framework, I guess in a download, but it was a download with a lot of other entrepreneurs. So I wrote the frame in one weekend between the hours of 2 a.m. and 10 a.m., which was hard work. to stay awake. But and then the rest just sort of came, and it came in waves of, not in a continuous delightful download, but sometimes it kept me up and other times I had to struggle through to tap into it. But I guess it builds on, for me, what was a very intense kind of a 5-year journey, deep into meditation and quantum healing and a whole lot of other universal practices. So yeah, it was just waiting to be formed from life experience.
Love that. And mine was the same. And so mine came to me initially in hospital, and then I would park it for a little while, and then I'd feel into it when I was ready to write another story, and then that story would come to me and through me, and then I'd pen that down, and away we went. And it was quite interesting when I look back on the amount of drafts of my book, because every time I wrote something, I would handwrite it, because there was an energy and a feeling in the handwriting. And even sometimes I was noticing the way that my writing was hitting the paper. And it was just quite bizarre what that meant to me. And then what I would do from there, I knew I had it written down, so then I would transcribe it into a Word doc and then start the editing process from there. And every time that I made an edit, I would always save it with the date. So sometimes I would make 4 or 5 changes in the book on one day, and I ended up, I think, with about 103 drafts from, and I did that purposely just to give myself a little bit of a track on where I'd been. And I went back at times and reviewed some of the chapters and the wording, and I went, oh, did I say that back then?
It's so interesting. That is absolutely so interesting, because one of my very most favourite books, which is Seth Speaks by Jane Roberts and Bob Butts. The part, they kind of were the catalyst for the Abraham or Jeffrey and Esther Hicks.
Yes.
And Jane Robertson was an amazing channelist in New York. Their house is really famous. And she would channel, and people would watch, and Robert would transcribe, and he would write down the date. And it's honestly, that is true channeling. My book wasn't like that. You're a channeler. I'm a manifesting forcer most of the time.
It's funny you say I'm a channeler, because I'm pretty sure my partner Melissa thinks I'm on a different channel sometimes.
Oh well, just the usuals of a happy marriage.
Exactly right. There's what is it? This too shall pass. So there's all these stages that we go through, but that's relationships. It's about building, growing, learning, and experiencing, and understanding of your partner, and because we're all so uniquely different, as you're going to share about me when we get into my little chart a little later on.
Yeah, but I just also have to add, from a manifesting point of view, and I do really encourage this of people, when you write with your own hand, you literally pluck out of the universe and you place it into the physical realm. So that's one of my top kind of tips that I give to people, is keep a journal and be very conscious about what you're putting in that journal, because it's essentially your spell book you're taking from the 99 and making it real. So it's why I really encourage people to write in the present, to write with gratitude, to write what they want, as opposed to, observing what they don't want. But the act of actually physical writing is incredibly profound from a manifesting perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's. I wonder where we're going to go with that in relation to all the changes that are ahead of us from a technological perspective, and handwriting, and where is handwriting? Is it going to be a thing of the future? And because there's so much happening in the world of AI, and it seems to be that there's things that get lost along the way. So I know at times there where I hadn't done any writing for a while, it did take me a little bit to just get that flow happening again, and get that feel of the pen. Like, I've even got it now, but it feels comfortable, so I can take some notes. But tell me a little bit about your let's go back and tell me a little bit about your childhood and growing up as a young girl, and what did your parents stand for?
Well, so I didn't remember a lot of my childhood until I started to experience some really significant challenge with my own children. And I always wondered why I couldn't really remember anything under the age of 4. So my dad was a street kid at 12. He met my mother at a party, and then I was conceived, and they were in a small town, and they were forced to marry. So they spent a few years in their hometown, and then they went to another area in our country as 19 and 23, I think my dad was. And they had two kids, and my sister was brewing. And it was really horrible. That's the only way to describe it.
Yeah.
And it was really violent. And they were really useless as parents.
Yeah.
And then they split up very acrimoniously. My dad became a really fervent Jehovah's Witness, and my mother just was all over the place with many boyfriends and just really disinterested. And so I was kind of surrogate mum to my brothers and sisters. So it was traumatic. And and I think I've been lucky enough to be blessed with some significant guides in the universal realm. So I haven't scathed too badly through that process, but it has been my, I guess, a curse and a gift to have to undo it as an adult and to deal with the unconscious trauma of family violence and sexual violence and neglect and just outright fear.
Yeah, it's even in the work that I've been doing over the last few years into my wellness brand, and especially down the line with my breath work and becoming a somatic breathwork coach. It's when I coach people on, we might put someone through a journey on releasing the 5 primary trauma imprints. Because they can be so deep and so locked up within us, and if we can get that shift to happen, and if we can have people experience that shift without the need to actually talk about it, but just release the attachment from within, it can be quite a freeing and liberating experience for them. And you're a living testament to a child that experienced that trauma and has been able to then recognise in yourself what it is that you needed to do for you to put yourself in the space where you are right now, and that's that blessing and a curse. There's a blessing and a curse in lots of events that happen in our life.
Yeah, and I think for me, when I really understood the trauma that sits in my family lines, I actually became quite determined that I was going to end it in my line. And even though my own children really, unfortunately, I got into extreme conflict in a period of my life, and I was in my 40s, and my children were still, young and teenagers. So, and it probably, stuff was brewing before then, but it really came to a crisis. And so I just knew that the warfare, the essentially that generational slaying, because we had a lot of brutality in the tribal lines, very it's really close to us. So I just knew that my role was to clear it intergenerationally, and I took that with it took a painful and scary and challenging and quite nasty self-realization into something that actually became quite joyous. And that does sound weird, and people say that to me about particularly the fighting that went on between myself and my husband. They say that to me now, and they say, you take responsibility for it all the time. Why isn't he? And why hasn't he? And I just say, well, look, I just had to do that for me and my lines. I had to do that for my children. I had to do it for my moko who are going to come and future generations. I've got to clear it, and I've got the strength to clear it. So that is it is. Most people probably wouldn't be able to. No, I don't know about most people, but a lot of people would find that very confronting, whereas I just decided it was my responsibility.
Yeah, you needed to do it for you, and and we know that generational trauma can be passed on from as far back as 14 generations, and it actually becomes, and it's been scientifically proven that it becomes a part of your DNA. So when you can actually have that release release that ancestral generational trauma so that the next lineage doesn't carry it on, well, that's exactly the same experience that I want for our little boy, Ari, who's just 2.5 years old. And I've had to do a lot of work on myself as well. And people say, oh, what do you mean about generational trauma? Well, I know that my parents went through lots of things when they were kids, and then their parents went through lots of things when they were kids and adults, etc. And so it goes on and on and on, and you can go back as far as you wish to go back. And there's that connection there. You can paint the picture. So when you can have the realization to say that, well, I don't want to carry this in me anymore. I need it gone from my cellular structure. How did you go about starting to learn and experience tools and techniques to be able to give you that freedom and that liberation?
For a start, I was separate from my husband and we sold our house and I had time. We've got 3 children very close to each other, so I had a bit of time. And when I got over being angry and got over with the shame and the failure and got over myself, I was like, okay, well, I have to do something different. And so I started and I guess I'm a bit OCD. I do take things to the extreme and I need to know absolutely everything. I was a lawyer in a past life, so I absolutely have to get right into the guts of whatever I'm doing. And I started with meditation, then I went into quantum touch, so a lot of breath work as well, healing breath work. And then and heart work, a lot of heart work, and then the meditation, the regressions. And then I wanted to learn all of the brain waves that were being, that we activate through meditation. So then I got into hypnosis study and I did NLP and then subconscious clinical hypnotherapy. And then I got into really what people most say, is relatively out there, the really, advanced kind of techniques, the Dolores Cannon type, galactic unpacking.
Yeah.
But it came from a real, inquisitive, I want to know exactly what beat of your heart goes with exactly what brainwave, which goes exactly with what unpacking of a program. It was really dissecting. And I started to quite quickly get so incredibly fascinated by the levels of the mind, the brain waves, we use some of us don't even use 10%.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to use 50% every day.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to use a bit more as well. So maybe after this conversation, I'll have a bit more of a skill set to be able to do that. So that's awesome. Thank you. And we would... I'm looking at the pivotal moment where it took you from a career that you just shared with us as commercial law to be coming into this, quantum energy, cosmology, and self-hypnosis teacher. So what sparked that transformational shift? Where was that? Was there an awareness? Was there an event, something that happened that shifted you away from that previous life?
You know any lawyers?
I try not to use them. I try to avoid that at all costs.
Well, I'd sort of come out of law. I got out of law basically after law school because there were too many rules and it was the system holds down my people. So I kind of got into an area of tribal law and I was setting up companies and trusts and doing cool stuff. But I started to notice, and it actually wasn't just me that had this huge healing journey, because we'd set up I've set up so many incredible businesses with kind of collective businesses. And you get a couple of years into these startups, and then there's this huge war, and they just go boom and explode, and then they're gone. Which I guess is a startup journey anyway. You know, I think it's incredibly hard and takes a lot of energy and aroha or love, as we would say. But I started to actually observe that there people coming into situations were attracted for the same reason to, you know, do some of this healing, but there's this unconscious blocking. And some of these leaders are, I just find them absolutely incredible on one level. And, you know, whether it's environmental or business, but there are, you know, a lot of them are obese. Many have alcohol and a lot of drug issues as well. And even though they're fantastic leaders, and obesity is huge if you're Māori or Pacific. For, you know, like I might be one of the only not massive people in my line. And, you know, lack of exercise and diabetes, you know, all these really significant health conditions. And so I started to think to myself, well, it's not just me, actually. There's a reason why I'm doing this. And there's a reason why I'm here to be out there on the leading edge with pushing some of these ideas about unpacking some of these programs, because they're not helpful for people, and they're actually quite easy. It's quite easy to deprogram yourself, to, you know, decolonize yourself if you're prepared to sit quietly with your eyes closed, to breathe, as you know, to commit to curiosity and learning, and to not do things the way you would in an everyday way, to change up your energy. Yeah.
And it's interesting when you express that about the lineage there coming through, and a lot of it is just because the default programs just get passed on and just keep evolving.
Yeah.
But so there's never that interrupt there to say, well, hang on, there's something amiss here. What do we need? We need to flip the switch here to get some transformational change to give us some different outcomes. But it all has to start with the connection that you have with yourself, and from my experiences of people that look for relief from outside sources like drugs and alcohol, etc. It's because of the disassociation that they haven't been able to create that bond within themselves to give them that worthiness to then say, well, how can I improve myself and heal myself and be better for myself, so then I can be better for others that are in my presence.
And I think also maybe culturally, and this might sound woo, but it's actually not, because we're all tribal, right? We've all got indigenous lines, you know, just go to ancestry.com and you'll probably be surprised at where your ancestral lines take you. But I kind of think of it this way, is that we have a word, mana, and some people think it means power, but ma is time and na is the collective. So it's like we've got this tribe of unseen ancestors with us all the time, like literally. Some people say angels, other people say light, you know. I think we call them atua. And those atua go right back for us as culturally to the land, to the stones, to the rivers, to Hinemoana, the ocean, to the Tangaroa and, and Ranginui, the sky, Papatonuku, the earth. So we are actually got this it's not just our human lines, but it's these relationships into the wider cosmos. So in a way, that's there with us. And we didn't come here as human beings to fix anything. We didn't come here to do things. We came here just to be joyous and to appreciate the fact that we have access to these great stores of wisdom. And the wonderful thing about now, Gavin, and you are testimony to this, is so many people are waking up to this. They're saying, you know what? I know there's a non-physical being in me that's way bigger than this little person I've told myself that I am, this little trauma that I've become so focused on. And I think that is so close to us when we choose to allow it.
Yeah, when we choose to allow it, that's get out of your own way sometimes.
Yeah, it's the hardest thing.
It is a hard thing, and I can sit here and people know my story. They know what I've been through and where I've got to, and what journey I'm on now, and why I love to do this is because it's a conscious connectedness to the universe, and that's what I feel, and I want to remain in that conscious connectedness, but still have an awareness of how I'm thinking, acting, and feeling through the subconscious programs that I'm running. And I've learned how to change out those subconscious programs and replace them with updated software. So it gives me a different operating system, which can allow me to have different outcomes.
Absolutely.
And it's really quite. It allows me to bring. It's just brought peace into my life. And that's that was the whole content and context around the Little Book of Noticing. How one change can create peace in your life. Let go of judgment and replace it with noticing. See how your world changes.
Yeah, no, that is incredibly, I think, powerful. I really, really loved that. I felt a real Zen influence of you coming over to me. Yeah. So I'm sort of I would be in terms of my own practice, it's about being more, and because we have this huge store of energy, this oversoul that is part of Source itself. And it's about, it's about actually getting the alignment between this bigger, broader, wiser self and then this little way that we choose to show up with our focus. And I am, in my own noticing, I'm always trying to notice what my higher self is capable of, is pushing me to do, and as opposed to observing what is here, because I generally tend to get lost quite quickly in manifesting if I look around me.
Yeah.
I can't do your noticing. I start stomping my feet and go, I don't like that, I don't like that, I don't like that.
Yeah, and we can all be guilty of that because it's easy to do, and that's sort of like the ego trying to pull us back. But when we can flick that parrot off that shoulder and listen to the one on this shoulder, we can reverse it quite promptly. I have a little saying to myself. I give myself a little uppercut every now and again and go, come on, what's going on in there? Give yourself an uppercut and just flick the switch back to noticing. So what am I noticing about myself at the moment? What am I feeling within myself? And come back to my breath to change my state, and away we go again. So it's a continuum.
It is a continuum, but I think the book, one of my still favourite books is the Hicks book, The Art of Allowing, because it pushes us to be more. And I also love Neville Goddard, because he really said, you didn't come here to play small, you came here to play big. And if you're going to play big, you've actually got to be noticing all the desirable characteristics of what you want in the future, as opposed to the 1%, which is materially here. So it is the same, but it is, I guess I just hold myself to those continual big, and when I say big, I don't mean big as in big house, big car, that sort of stuff.
Yes.
How am I showing up in terms of impact? How am I influencing with love and care and compassion other people? Mostly, how am I pulling them to see themselves as bigger?
Yeah, and it's a little bit down the lines of a Joe Dispenza style, isn't it? Joe Dispenza, we want to live in a future created now. So sometimes you've got to change your reality, which is reflected through your personality. And once you can do that, you create an aura about yourself, which can actually have people thinking, I don't know why I'm in this guy's space, but I like being here. I don't know why I'm in Carmelle's space, but she makes me feel like that's the space I really desire to be in. And it's an energetic and a vibrational space that of just peace, joy, and love, and acceptance and awareness. And
Yeah,
when we can,
it
when we
is.
can, when we can be in those states and be in those pure states of consciousness, we can be present where we are because there's nowhere else we can be.
Mm.
So, now tell me about this little chart that you've sent me here. I know that my listeners would be really curious, as I was, because when I opened it up, I looked at it and I went, "Oh
What the?
wow, wow!" I thought, "Oh wow!" I
Yeah.
felt I'd been transported back to Roman days because I was looking at some
Mm.
symbols on here, and I
Yeah,
thought,
totally.
"Whoa, wow!" So
Yeah.
let's start with what is it, number one, and then if you can give some
Okay. Mm.
examples of what it means, and especially for me, because I want to learn more about me.
Absolutely. And you know why this is such a powerful, astrology is so powerful? Because everybody wants to know more about the bigger part of themselves that they just haven't been tuned into. And that is like, so that's a map of the heavens above the horizon and below the horizon at the moment you took your first breath. So in your case, it was 4 a.m., is that right?
2 a.m.
2 a.m., sorry.
Yeah.
I'm pulling it up on the side as I'm talking with you. So 2 a.m. So
Yes.
so that's actually translated because we're down under and 12 hours ahead of, or you're in your case, 10 hours in Australia.
Yes.
10 hours
Yeah.
ahead of Greenwich Mean Time, which is Universal Time, UTC. It was 2
Yes.
p.m. in, no, it wasn't. Universal Time was, what am I saying? It was 4 p.m.
Yeah, it was
4
1600. 4
p.m.
p.m.
the
Yep.
day before. So
Right. Yes.
that was the sky when you were born at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And the ace, right at the start, there's a line that goes across like that through the middle of the chart, a big thick line. That's
Yes.
the horizon. And the left-hand side, the AC, is where the sun was when you took your first breath. And that is called your rising sign. It is your house of personality. It's the first house, your personal vision as a soul, as a physical being. And under the horizon are the physical houses. Over the horizon, which is daylight, under is nighttime. So the daylight, because you were universal time, they're the universal houses in the system. And so most people just know their sun sign. And if your sun is that little diagram, like a circle with a little hole in it, in the third house for you, which is thoughts and communication. And here you are, a podcaster. You can see there's some planets in the third
Yes.
house, and you're a writer. So you've got a lot of third house action. And so this chart is, and it actually goes back to Babylonian times, back in the day when astrologers and astronomers were the same men mostly. Ptolemy, Galileo, they mapped the skies, and the astrology was the season. So they basically just looked at the characters of people, thousands and thousands of years of observation. It's science. But what happened is the astronomers stayed outside, and then the astrologers went inside. And the two got separated just as spirituality and science did. And so astronomy, people will say celestial objects. Astrology, they go woo-woo, but it's the same as the mind and the brain. The brain is astronomy, the celestial objects or the matter, and astrology is the consciousness, just as the mind has consciousness. So I'm really looking forward to being part of this revolution that actually brings back the two areas of study so that people can see that the astrology is observations of human characters through the seasons with the celestial objects that were in the sky and the moon and the cycles of the moon. They can actually understand that system, because when you go deep with it, and you do have to, it's quite complicated to understand it all. It's not nearly as simple as it's made out.
It's not a one podcast episode.
No, I think when I explain the system that I use, it's about 6 hours of tuition, and that's just the basics. And then you find your particular brand, But basically, you're a Pisces rising, and a Pisces. You should always read your horoscope for Pisces.
For Pisces, not for Taurus.
No, so Taurus is the sun is the fuel. It's what gets you out of bed. So it's why you probably like to eat things. It's why, you have the heart. Venus rules, like you've got some real heart power that comes. Taurians are naturally interested in beauty and love, and they like to, like food as a general. But your Pisces, your first house, how you open it's kind of like your doorway, how people greet you, as a water sign. And that's your empathy, your fluidity, your compassion, your creativity, your spirituality. And that is that is who you evolve to in your life. And the other thing is, if you look at your sun, which is in the third house, your Taurus sun, what fuels you is in communication, is in thoughts. Mm-hmm. If you were a true Taurian, you'd have your sun in the first house, and that would make you a very, it'd make you a very bullish Taurian, because, and I've got two sons who are Taurians as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated by that, because I've never sort of felt myself as a bullish Taurian.
Yeah.
Because it's always been sort of heard of that way, where you're a Taurian, you're a bull. I think, I don't really think I am that bullish. So this might help me understand a little bit more about myself from that perspective.
Yeah, well, you're a very interesting character. I mean, you know this.
Oh, we know that.
You also got, if you look in the first house, you've got Mars and Aries. Now, that's a very significant. Also means that your chart is ruled. So Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. They're pretty wishy-washy, and they're often too empathic, and they end up feeling everyone's emotions and having to drink themselves into oblivion because they're being bombarded by
taking on everyone else's energy.
Yeah, as the cosmic doormat of the universe, essentially, because it's the last sign. It's real deep. It's it's a Pisceans are deep as. Beautiful, and rules the quantum, the matrix source. But you also have, in your first house, you've got Mars and Aries, which is very determined. Mars is the god of war, and in the sign of Aries, rules Aries. So it's a very strong desire to bring your vision into the world. And, I don't need, you know that. Look at you, you're living proof of Mars and Aries.
Yeah, well, I'd like to think that. Well, I do those things, like, bringing, well, that's my first book there, and this was an industry book. This got me into writing initially, and then I went into the self-help realms, where I penned a little book of noticing, because I felt I had a message to share with the universe, and to help us all awaken a little bit more. And
that's your Mars.
And then that's my Mars.
Yeah, it's driving. Well, it's also where your sun is in the third house. The third house is communicating. Mm-hmm. And I think there were just a couple of other things I've got to get into before, because I don't want us to lose it. Your moon is very significant moon in Virgo. And when I read in your book about how you had your whole kitchen labelled, I was like, Virgo.
Yeah.
Because Virgo's rightless, they're obsessive about details. And I was like, oh my God, that is the worst thing to happen to a Virgo, to have somebody come into your system and just make it
gone.
Oh, I was like, oh, you poor darling, your emotional moon.
So you felt for me in that story?
I felt pain. I was like, oh my God, that's terrible. That really is bad.
Yeah.
But your Virgo moon is 27th degree, and that's a super special degree. The degrees in astrology are very important, because it's a straight line into the galactic core, or Te Kori, we call it. It's the realm of nothingness and everything from whence all came, and it's the plug of our universe. So you can zip right in there emotionally and pull out from that great realm of creation, whatever you like.
Wow. Awesome. So And this puts me down as a, what was it? I was trying to understand it and reflect on it, but I didn't go too deep into it because I knew you'd give me a clearer explanation of it. But it certainly has me curious to sort of understand some more, because if I can just gather a little bit more about myself as and my style of functionality, and I think everyone really needs to experience this type of thing to get a deeper connection to themselves and a deeper understanding, and to be able to then express themselves as who they are to others as well. Because that's half the battle with a lot of relationships, is that we don't have the understanding and respect of the fundamental drivers of the person we're relating to.
Yes. Which I think when I reach out to people, they go, whoa, because it is a map of probable energy. You get to realize it or not. But pretty much if you don't do it, the planets are going to hand, because there's some green, the green symbols on the outside of your chart are the transits. That's what's happening is our little ball of wet rock flying through at light speed through the universe is having sunlight, moonlight, and other planetary light reflected through the other objects. So it's this interplay, just like physical life is an interplay of multi-dimensional, multi-physical experiences. That's happening galactically. And that's quite hard to get your head around. But when people see their chart, they are often just like really blown away by how true it is in terms of the various different journeys and the planetary transits, which is why I just wanted to say one quick last thing about your midline. So that line, that heavy black line that goes up the middle, is called a power line. Yep. And so we call it the line of whakapapa or heritage. So that's the ancestors, and you've got some significant guiding ancestors right down on your tailbone in Gemini, either grandparents, great, they could be a couple of generations back, but they were speakers and seekers, and they're guiding you, whether you know it or not, doesn't really matter, they are.
Yeah.
And you draw that energy of your whakapapa, your heritage, right up to, you will see you've got Sagittarius there at 23 degrees of Sagittarius. Super important, because the Sagittarius line are the super manifestors of the galaxy. They're the teachers, the sage, the click your fingers, beliefs that your strong beliefs will play up super fast, and that is your midheaven. So you are meant in this part of your life, and I wonder if this has had something to do with why you're in hospital, because Sagittarius, they manifest for good or bad like that. Bad thought, boom, see you later, you're going to be sick. Disease, so, but it's also a time, it's also very important in terms of being a teacher, a philosopher, somebody who contributes to, and that's at an international level, it's a global level, it's not a small level. You're meant to rise, to grow your audience worldwide, to expand how you teach and impact other people through your star lines, through your whakapapa.
Yeah, it was interesting you said that, because I'll just show some people here. It's sort of up around this area here. And you said in some feedback you gave me about the MC midheaven, highest expression in life, Sagittarius 23, super manifester.
Yeah.
So so I'm certainly going to take that on board and run with that for sure, because that's really where I want to feel myself heading into 2024. And there's a fairly significant period coming up in this November period. Is it what's this special period that you mentioned to me? Is it a Sagittarius period or something? Could you explain to us about that, please?
Okay, so this period from the 23rd of November, because remember in Australia and New Zealand, we're ahead of the rest of the world. So we're always kind of like, you always have to read a chart a day ahead. But we
Right.
basically get a month where the heavens are full of the stars of Sagittarius. And that basically means that Jupiter, which is the biggest planet of abundance and wealth, is kind of like doing some shifting, but there's other triggers there that where everybody can upgrade their beliefs. But for you particularly, this is a time when you want to, because it is your midheaven, you really want to pay attention to any of those times of the year, universal year, when your own chart is being fired up. So you'll be wanting to pay attention in February, March, to your Pisces, to your spirituality. When you come down to, around your birthday time, you've got all that energy that's there. That's a really good time to be publishing a book, to be writing more, to be reaching audiences. But everybody has all of the 12 signs of the zodiac influencing them in their own chart. So but super manifesting period is just this time where we can really check ourselves on our beliefs and upgrade them and go outside. And, Jupiter's particularly bright when you put your wishes there, expand your learning, decide that you want to call in some of this greater universal energy, because it will come. It'll come through signs, podcasts, books, and if you're me, it's, fairly significant life experiences. People will show up, all of these coincidences that are not will align for people, particularly in this period if they decide that that's what they want to open.
And it's more, because I've certainly moved into the realm of synchronicities as opposed to coincidences, and identifying the difference between the two, because of what I express and what I put out to the universe, to allow it to, without becoming attached to that. It's just what I can feel into and let go of, and allow the universe to just deliver those synchronistic events. To beautiful, thank you. And then the acknowledgement and the gratitude of receiving. Really quite amazing. So thank you for that explanation of that. It's really, it's intriguing, fascinating, and it's definitely got me willing to explore more about it. Because I've never been down that line of cosmology, and a lot of men out there will say, well, look, it seems like there's a fair bit of femininity coming into you at the moment with your cosmology now. So they might elect to sit at another table from me at the pub once they listen to this one.
Oh, that's so funny you say that, because all the best astrologers, and this is really, I think there's been some really significant mathematicians who've gone out to prove that astrology is woo. And because you've got to get the whole system, and it's not easy, and you've got to decode all those symbols and then understand aspects, and there's a lot of work. So men go out to prove that it's a bunch of bollocks, and pretty much all of them become world famous astrologers. So actually this is as much a calling. In fact, I probably prefer the male astrologers, because I like to have it explained logically, and not just my moon is floating around in the seventh heaven, and I actually prefer it to make sense with what I can see around me. So it's a calling for men just as much as it is for women.
Oh, that's nice to know. Thank you. Hey, I want to go on move on to your book a little bit, because I haven't read it all, but I've certainly gone through the introduction and some first chapters on it, and I will be reading more about it. But I just want to share a couple of little things from the book with our listeners. And just one of the paragraphs here in your introduction, where you say, "You are a wonderful, miraculous force of nature to be reckoned with. Trillions of cells 11,500 out-breaths per day, as many as 70,000 thoughts, swirling emotions and feelings every day, tens of trillions of thoughts in an average lifespan, an electrochemical radiating beacon, thoughts clumped together, gaining momentum, gaining energy, and to these massive power banks, experiences attract. Now, just in that paragraph alone, I picked up on the electrochemical radiating beacon and the power bank of energy that we are, and that comes through these 70,000 thoughts. So do you want to have 70,000 negative thoughts, or would you prefer your 70,000 thoughts to be in the positive, because that's going to determine your outcome?
Yeah.
So just feeling into that, and that radiated for me really just beautifully.
And that's Joe Spencer, actually, Gavin. I credit him for actually putting the number on the number of thoughts and feelings a day between 50,000 and 70,000, but it's kind of a generally accepted principle. I think the only thing I just added to that is over a year, that could be as many as 25 million thoughts. And so when people say, oh, I'm just a little so-and-so, I'm like, yeah, right.
Yeah,
right. What are you doing?
You are right, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what are you doing? We do 25 million thoughts a year.
Yeah. And the thoughts are normally coming to you through your subconscious program. So when you can have when you can be in a state of consciousness where there's no thought, you can be in a state of peace. Whereas if you can, sometimes your subconscious program is putting you into that state of what happened to me yesterday versus what may happen to me tomorrow, may or may not happen to me tomorrow. And there was another fabulous little paragraph here. It's entitled "What Flows Next," and it says, "I've also explained some of the key processes that you could expect if you were to seek assistance from a teacher who has a good dose of the Dalai Lama, a little bit of Jane Fonda on pink speed skates, and the cognitive abilities of Einstein." And I really got a good laugh out of that. And I thought, well, I can see myself sitting there with a little bit of Dalai Lama in me. I haven't yet had the vulnerability to roll down the street with Jane Fonda's pink skates on. And when it comes to Einstein, I know that I can do my 12 times table. So I've got a mix in there, and you've got your mix. And so that was beautifully put. So thank you for that.
But everybody has that. And I think that maybe that's why. I mean, I am a bit of a, I hardly ever go to sleep, and I don't have a lot of down days. I'm pretty much always on. But I just, it just frustrates me how people play so small, and I literally just want to dance around them and say, this is your one life. This is our one life. We didn't come here to play small. We came here to love. We came here to share. We came here to dance naked under the moon, whatever. We came here to have delicious relationships, bubbly in the morning every day, rides in nature to feel good. We didn't come here to sit there hating on our lives and the people around us.
Yeah. Yeah, we see enough of that in the world, and it becomes where I do what I can to, send healing thoughts to all of the people that are experiencing these horrible atrocities that are happening around the world. But I can't allow myself to become attached to that, because I want my radiance to be one of positivity and glow and health. And it's interesting, you had a heading there which is called "Slow is Faster." And just to share with our listeners, by the end of the book, you will have a new respect for slow thinking. For the slowest brainwaves, imaginative theta, and deep rest delta, you will know why dreaming is your best manifesting proving ground. You might start to guard your sleep times and embrace the power of 3-minute, 33 or 3:33-minute delta wave napping. So could you just share with our listeners a little bit about that paragraph?
Well, thank you for sharing that, because really, when I like hacks, Gavin, I run fast and get a lot done. So that slowness is, as soon as you shut your eyes, essentially, everything goes within, and that's because of the amount of data, 50 million bits per second, 40 million is light. So as soon as you close your eyes and then you take that deep breath and then you sink into your heart, it just slows everything down and enables you to get to delta. And delta's the brainwave. It's it's basically the slowest that most people associate with being asleep. But you would know this as a meditator, you can actually hit delta. And what you can do with 30 seconds of delta, with 3 minutes of delta, with 10 minutes of delta is significant. You're lucky if you can get 50 minutes of delta, even when you're asleep, just because our consciousness is a wave. But delta detoxifies. It resets the body's programs. It makes your mind work as a whole mind, keeps your ego balanced with your superconscious. It balances your vagus nerve and your parasympathetic system.
Mm-hmm.
And the challenge for us in our turned on world is that we don't get enough of delta. And it doesn't matter how you get it, but you need about 2 hours a day. So that is why deep meditation, where however you get into that delta state, it is so good for you, and it will change you in a way that you can't consciously gain. It's just I was just trying to think of the book Altered Traits by, I always forget their names, a couple of scientists and meditators. It'll come to me. But so this book is what the impact of meditation. It's all of the research that's been compiled. But delta is definitely which is your dreaming brainwave, is definitely where you want to get your practice centered around, because it's a hack. It's you can run around doing so much more if you're just getting that good dose of your slow brainwaves, your delta brainwaves.
Yeah, and even in the theta brainwave state, whereas that's a state where we can actually open up the subconscious mind to be able to change out some of our programs. That's a beautiful state to be in as well, because that's the imaginative creativity state also. So I was curious when I read that, and I thought, well, that's fascinating. And it just brings out another synchronicity here. And I had to share it with you because the subheading in that little bit was called Slow to Faster. And in my first book, I've got a subheading called Slow Down to Go Faster.
Funny.
And it just resonated. As soon as I read it, I went straight to my first book, and I thought, I know where that is in my book, because I coach people to just slow down to go faster, and slowing down through obviously the theta and delta states of sleep, rest, relaxation, turning on the parasympathetic nervous system. And if we can activate that parasympathetic nervous system more than the sympathetic nervous system, we can learn to breathe longer, slower, and deeper, which oxygenates our blood more. There's nice, long, slow, deep breaths. We build up a higher tolerance to CO2, and we actually deliver more blood to ourselves. And I work from the around about 10 to 12 breaths per minute for me is about my cycle. And quite often people that overbreathe are up around the 20 plus breaths per minute. So they're breathing from a sympathetic nervous system, which we don't want them to be in, because that's putting stress on the system everywhere.
Yeah.
So even if we can just have an awareness into their breathing cycles, we can change that, and it brings in a heart rate ability which is actually conducive to what is a real flow state. So, yeah, thank you for that part. And there were a couple of other little bits that I highlighted off here.
There was just one thing to add to the theta and delta, because this is just important for people, because, you know, a lot of people I work with just go, I don't even have time for meditation. Do you know what I have to do in a day? And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. You know, you don't have 3 minutes. And I'm like, no. And also, it's stupid, because how can I clear my mind? Like, how can I actually clear it? It's just full of all this these ants. So I have, I think it's really important that people do their own meditation, their own words, and don't use guided meditations. They're the junk food of the meditation world. So learn a practice. But recently I've been using this brain entrainment software, and there's a lot out there with a bit of binaural beats mixed in. And that takes about 8 to 12 minutes. And there's no words. You just plug in whatever it is, program, you know, and I know quite a few really amazing programs. And whatever that does, I don't know what it does, but it works. You know, you're talking to a person who can meditate themselves for 2.5 hours easy. I can get myself into the zone and stay there for a long time. This stuff is deeper, and it triggers, you know, you'll be sitting there and you'll be full dreaming as well as doing whatever you're doing. We have so many modern gifts and, you know, tools that we can use so that it doesn't have to be hard for ourselves. And so I think that's what I try to encourage people just to explore theta and delta, and practices, and find something where they're doing it, and take hacks, because it just means that you can function at a level that, you don't get as tired, you're not getting as cranky, you find your learning increases and your joy increases.
That's most definite. And I have some of my clients and stuff that express things the same way. I don't know how to do that. I haven't got time. I can't slow my mind down. And some will ask for me, can you give me something to just for 5 minutes that can start me off?
Magic pill.
Magic pill. Here you go. So I might give them a little guided 5-minute. I've got this beautiful one called Heart Mind Connection, which I created, and we used 9D sound, and I've scripted it myself, and we create our own music, and we've created the music just like you were saying, with the different frequencies and beats, etc., to allow just people to be that little bit immersed. And even if it's a starting period of 5 minutes, and you can do that a couple of times a day, and then you'll grow from there, and you get to a point where I go to a weekly meditation class with my psychologist. He's a psychologist, but from a Buddhist background. And we do a 30-minute pure silence meditation. It's just ding. That's where we are. We just meditate. Yeah. And then we have a 30-minute Q&A at the end of that as a group, talking about Buddhist principles and how they can be lived through your day-to-day. So just and anyone can, even if I coach people to just, if you bring your awareness back to your breath, it's your first sign of a meditative state. So even just think about that. You know, don't if you get too caught up in the word meditation, just think about conscious breathing, because conscious breathing is your beginning of a meditative state. So just to help them in any way we can to tap into what's available to them, and then build upon it through repetition, because we need the repetition to make it a new program. That has the ability then to just break the cycle, so to speak.
It does.
So what would be some of the chapters in your book are fascinating. Just chapter 1, be a super manifester. Chapter 2, expect the best and nothing less, and then choose freedom, befriend the universe, manifest with your heart. Be super conscious. You are the healer. your daily workshop, Get More with Good Vibes. It's just some fascinating stuff, and all of this, everything within each chapter. I'm really looking forward to reading the whole book and learning more. And what would you like to share from your experiences of putting Super Manifester together and then being able to help people to do some self-hypnosis?
So I think the first thing, the title of each of the chapters is really deliberately positioned at putting other people in the guru seat, because I have this real desire that people realize that they're the teacher, that they're the healer, that they are super conscious. This is not some state. Being a super manifester is actually not some state that you get to. It's with you all the time. It's just you have to decide to get out of the everyday, however you do that, whether it's breath with, pumping your heart, like, I love that, or dancing around a tree, standing on the ground in your bare feet. New Zealand and Aussies, we love that.
Yeah, yeah, grounding.
Getting on your cycle, chucking yourself in a stream. It doesn't matter. It's just about breaking and challenge yourself. So I think that's the only real message that I try to give to people and why I stopped basically giving healings, because I'm really good at it, but people become very dependent on giving their authority away, whereas I'm trying always to push it back to the person that I work with or the groups that I work with. It's like, you guys have the answers for you. And you just have to find them by allowing yourself to be more, to have more, to celebrate more, to play more. And so that's probably why I just wrote everything in that extreme way, because I think from the universe's point of view and from our universal higher beings, the bigger us, we're always looking back on our little selves and saying, hurry up, catch up, come on.
Yep. Get with me here.
Get with me, stop. It must be so frustrating being a spirit, looking down on us like little ants, like, in a traffic jam, giving the fingers to somebody else, like this. The stuff that we worry about is sometimes I just, and then I do too, it's not like I've got the answers, like I'm often complaining about things. I had a day today,
it's turning it off and turning on a conscious way of being is the key for me. It's like I took our son out yesterday and I take him to we have a wildlife park up here, and I've got a yearly pass to it, and I take him to that. It'd be almost every third weekend, and he'll go, Daddy, I want to go for a ride on Thomas, because they've got a little train that goes around the wildlife park. So we went up there yesterday and we spent 4 hours together. And we went into they have a little water park there as well, and there's water spraying over and buckets of water tipping down on the kids, and all little kids running around through these little water fountains. And I got Ari in his little swimmers, and off he went in and out, and he's running around, and then he comes over to me and he says, Daddy, your turn. Daddy, your turn. Well, Daddy only had his pants and shirt on that he took to the wildlife park, and I don't think any of the other parents needed to see Daddy and he's running around in his bonds. So I thought, stuff it. I took my shirt off and Daddy just took everything out, my phone and glasses out of my pocket, put it in the bag. Righto, mate, let's go. So here I am running around through the waterfalls with him. You know what? The thing that came to me right at that moment is exactly what I shared in one of the stories in my book. It's about turning moments into memories. And that to me was a moment that became a memory, because my pants will dry. but that moment and that memory will be with me forever. And it will be with Ari when we play back a little bit of of the footage of him running around through it. And that's the realization of living in the now and living in conscious presence and exploring and allowing your child to just be there and be there as you as a child as well.
And so important, but just because Ari's running around in theta, from 0 to 7, we're in theta.
Yes.
And it's not just our words, and it's not just what we do, it's the energy field. So that huge, beautiful feeling of joy and happiness, that's a code that Ari will carry with him. You know, you'll probably find him when he's an adult man, you know, racing through fountains and...
Yeah. Well, I really do. I hope by then he'll be... I might be walking around the fountains at that point, but...
I don't know. I think you'll be running around still.
I'm going all right for 61. And look, it's been a fascinating conversation. And looking ahead, what are your aspirations for the future in terms of your teachings and the impact you hope to make in the lives of those that you connect with?
So I really want my book to get to as many people as possible, and that's a real, which is why I've reached out to so many podcast hosts, and I'm really thankful that you accepted the call, because I just learned, honestly, so much about you through this process, and that is part of it. But yes, definitely reaching more people, and I'm going back to running some more group workshops. I used to run a lot of group workshops kind of lockdown, but it was hard for a few years. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. And next year is a dragon year. So it's a shifting. We've come out of the post-pandemic lockdown, division and conflict. So yeah, that is, for me, I feel like there's more joy to be allowed by my brothers and sisters in the collective, and some of them, you know, we've still got some challenges, but I feel like the dragon year next year is really going to blow some stuckness out of the world.
So what's the significance of dragon year?
Just big shifts occur, and big, you know, it's a wealth and abundance here. The other shift that we're going to have is Uranus out of Taurus. So the last time we had Uranus in Taurus, we had the Great Depression. So we'll start to see the writing out of this recession. So that for me is, I'm really looking forward to that, because it's been hard. And we're all sick of being locked up and locked down and fighting at home about vaccinations and governments, and, you know, it's time to play. So I feel very positive about next year. And yeah.
That's beautifully shared. Thank you for that. And it is. And I feel there's more people that are awakening to the fact of what we experienced through that pandemic and all the lockdowns and all the, unfortunately, all the mistruths that were shared with us that created separation. And I truly believe that was one of their agendas, was to create separation. And now for people to be maybe just sitting back and going, well, okay, look, there's going to be more truths coming out. They're just unfolding every day, unpacking. And more people are becoming more consciously aware of where they want themselves to be on this journey that we're in. So it's really quite powerful, and I certainly can feel into those shifts. And so I want to thank you deeply from the bottom of my heart for sharing this time with us. We've tapped out at about 1 hour and 20, so I'm sure we could talk for about 4 hours if we stuck in here. Not sure how many listeners we'd have at the end of the 4-hour podcast, but they might have to come back for part 2 or part 3.
Yeah.
But it's been truly, I feel it's been a heart-mind connection, and thank you for commenting on my shirt. We love
Lovely
our little
shirt.
heart-mind connection shirts, and
I love it.
they just really feel. And I was talking to Rick today, one of my team, and I had a conversation on the phone with him, and I was talking about there's these three principles that I coach people through, which is called TAV, which is truth, authenticity, and vulnerability. And I said to him this morning, I had this come to me, and I said, there's another aspect to that, and get this down while I'm sharing it with you. And that was the one of it was channeling. It was the heart, mind, and the gut connection. And I said, do a Venn diagram on those three, and then we're going to express the connection of those three and how they interact with our other three of TAV, because I feel that really locks it in and solidifies it. And so he got that down for us, and I said, get that down? Yeah, I got that down. But look, fascinating to talk to you. How can our listeners connect with you?
I think the best way is, and it's easy to remember, is my Instagram. I'm quite active on that. And my handle is Super Manifestar.
Manifestar, S-T-A-R.
S-T-A-R.
Yeah, awesome.
That's the easiest.
That's the easiest. Well, we'll make sure that we slice and dice this podcast up as many ways as we can, and we'll give you all the access to everything that we create off it, and you just share that out with your universal magic, and we'll do ours to share ours out as well. And Carmelle, I always like to finish my podcast with a question for my guest, and that is, Carmelle Riley, who are you breathing for today and why?
Oh, I feel the call to breathe through for all the young children in our world. And because I think of them as, we say moko moko. So we make decisions for our children's children and their children. So I always breathe for children because they are the light that comes after we're gone.
Yeah, thank you. Beautiful. Yeah, I totally agree. And especially now having my little fella running around and the energy that he brings to me. And my daughter, I've got an older daughter, and she's got a 3-year-old daughter. So my granddaughter, my son is actually my granddaughter's uncle, which throws a lot of people. But when those two are together, I had both of them for one day last week, and at the end of that day, I was absolutely, I was done and dusted.
You needed a Delta detox.
I needed a Delta. I got that. I slept like a log. You wouldn't believe how deep I slept that night. But pure joy right throughout the whole day. And the strange thing about it was, neither one of them had a daytime sleep that day.
Wow.
They were just like on ever-ready batteries. They just kept going.
Oh,
and I thought, well, they'll probably have a sleep around 11, maybe from 11 till 12:30, and I'll just grab a coffee and just have a little bit of a rest, do a bit of breathing, and just. But then 11 came, and 11:30 came, and 1 o'clock came, and 4 o'clock came, and then Addison's dad turned up around 5 o'clock, and I said, it looks like they're not having a sleep today. But all in good fun. So thank you, Carmelle. It's been amazing. And look, I'd like to do this all again somewhere down the line after I've read your book and had a bit of a deep dive, and maybe we can explore some of the content around that and share some takeaways with our wider audience on what we can learn about becoming a super manifester.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I really enjoyed today, and yes, thank you, Gavin. It's been an absolute delight, and I hope that your audience got some interesting ways of seeing themselves as universal beings.
I think they will for sure. It's if they can take one thing out of today, That's one thing of value, and one way that we can just bring a little bit of peace and newness into their world. So thank you. So there you have it, everyone. This is the mammal. We remember the old mammal, middle-aged man in Lycra. Signing off, Gavin McGay from 100 Breaths, in this fantastic little episode that we've had with Carmelle Riley today. And we'll catch you next time on 100 Breaths, the podcast.